Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. And as usual, I'll remind you to join the mailing list just in case YouTube decides to cut me off. I'll email you about where I'm broadcasting to. And I send out a weekly newsletter. I've sent out 4 so far, and it's going pretty well. And don't forget to join the forums as well. We have a whole conversation going about each episode on the Federal Politics Forum. And there's a whole lot of conversations that are going on. So we'd love to have you. Join us, etc. Okay, now I've got to fix a mistake I made yesterday. Jagmeet Singh did not tour ICUs. I got it wrong. The quote is there, and I really should have seen as the picture of the nurse was staring right at me as I was talking about it. So I should have seen that. But the thing is, a couple of things. I write my show kind of as I collect my links, and usually I tag my links to research. Like, it's not in the show, it's just something to look at later, right? Is this what I think it is? And sometimes I read the quote and I just thought, okay, yeah, it is. And my intent was to read further. And had I scrolled down and read the next tweet, which I usually do, I would have seen that it was the nurse. But regardless, I got it wrong. And I apologize. I should be better. So I will do my best to be better. But I think that it's a mistake for Jagmeet to highlight how racialized Canadians are being more affected by this than non-racialized Canadians, and driving that wedge using this story. And it's not out of the realm of possibility to have a politician tour a hospital, to have a photo op, etc., right? And Justin Trudeau's done it. He's had ministers do it. Haydu's done it. They were in a hospital meeting or something like that, which I thought was weird. So it was in the realm of possible for me. And I thought, man, like, how tone deaf is this? If we've got people who are not able to visit their families and this guy's doing photo ops, it's tone deaf. That didn't happen, but that's what animated me. That's what got me angry about it. And so again, I should be better. And so I apologize. But I still don't like how Jagmeet Singh is using this to drive a racial wedge. I came across this article yesterday, and I think that it's very interesting. This is an opinion article from the National Post. It says, "From abroad, Canada looks like a country drowning in its own self-pity." And he's an Indian living in India who his sons moved to Canada for their education. And he took an interest in Canadian politics and has been watching the National Post. He describes what's happening, and this is an excerpt from that I think is interesting in our times. So to underscore, apologies for getting it wrong on Jagmeet. He didn't tour an ICU, but the racist wedge being driven by the stories chosen by the leader of the NDP are tone deaf and damaging to our country, in my opinion. So apologies for getting it wrong. And this, I think, is why they're tone deaf and damaging. Okay? Just to put a fine point on it. Quote from the article. I was astonished when a few years ago, a delightfully warm-hearted woman I've known since she was a teenager and who immigrated to Canada in her 30s started complaining about racism in Canada. It was especially perplexing given the fact that she stood for election and is currently an elected representative in a provincial government, Think about this. She's become a political and social leader in a country she moved to as an adult. She had no ethnic connection to, did not belong to the majority religion, and did not even have English as her first language growing up. I'd like to underline that there is absolutely no chance, none whatsoever, that I could get elected in the legislature of the state where I live in India because my family is originally from a different state. Reflect on this. No one has any chance of getting elected, which is why no one in the past 20 years has, in my state, if she's from another state in the same country. Yet this woman, who lived in a majority of her life in India, thinks Canada is racist? I've been increasingly worried that Canadian culture has become a petri dish for such thinking ever since my sons started school there. I checked the holiday calendar issued by the Peel District School Board in Ontario and noticed that a remarkable number of days were marked with esoteric religious holidays. The 9th day of Ramadan, of the Binari... Oh, no, I'm getting that terribly wrong. I was going to try, but of a specific faith is listed, as is another holiday of Zoroastrianism. Oh, I've got it so terribly wrong. I'm sorry. Since there are only about 1,000 adherents of Zoroastrianism in the world, of which 70,000 are in India, I'm unsure how many have found their way to Canada, but I can't imagine there's too many of them in Peel region. Why do Canadians accept that a public school board in a secular country that's 65% Christian should be commemorating holidays of religions that hardly anyone in the country adheres to? right? That's an interesting thing to note from outside of Canada. It's an interesting thing for Jagmeet to highlight from inside Canada. Like he says, nurses have been on the front lines of this pandemic for a year now. I spoke with the nurse about burned out nurses and the burnout nurses are facing and how racialized people have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. Burned out nurses and racism, right? Those racist everything. Coronavirus is racist. The response is racist. All these racialized people in here. Is it Ottawa that he was touring through? Was it Toronto? Or was it the nurse from Toronto? Let's see. I don't know. Hold on. It's from Toronto Life. So could demographics have something more to do with the number of racialized people in the ICU, Mr. Singh? I think it's disingenuous to push it this way. And there are many, many more important stories, but I hate getting things wrong. It's actually really, really awful when I get things wrong. And I found out that I got it wrong like as soon as the video was published. I almost brought it down. I almost took it down. I was like, and I thought, you know what? You did this. So research better. Be better. I will be better. I'm sorry. Okay, to the moon. To the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Did you think that now is a good time for Canada to go to the dark side of the moon? No, I think this is probably not a great use of money, but okay, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing now. Canada announces plan to land a rover on the moon in the next 5 years. Craft will be designed to withstand the dark and extreme cold of a lunar night, which lasts about 2 weeks. Right? We're going to the dark side of the moon, everyone. Yeah. Science Minister Francois Philippe Champagne, and he was the former foreign minister, right? So I didn't realize he was shuffled out of that position to the science minister. That's a pretty significant shuffle. I should find out who is the current foreign minister. Anyway, says Canada plans to land a rover on the moon in the next 5 years. The Canadian Space Agency said the unmanned robotic vehicle will aim to gather imagery and measurements of the moon's cratered surface, showcasing technologies from Canadian companies in a polar region of the Earth's only natural satellite. Conducted in a partnership with NASA, the mission hopes to have the rover make it through an entire lunar night, which lasts about 2 weeks and presents major technological challenges due to the extreme cold and dark. Is this what, I mean, like Canada's doing great. That's what we should be funneling a whole bunch of public money into right now, right? Like definitely. Could we fund more things in other countries, right? Please. Here is, okay, so China, racism, and like, I guess this racist thing is a theme in Canada. The similarities between the question and answer here, and this is ivermectin. Okay, I'm going to move this. We're going to talk about Brian Pallister's dodge on ivermectin, but I don't know where it quite fits. I'm going to move it away. And we'll talk about it before the end of the show. We'll stick with racism and China. Do you remember when Patty Haydu told the reporter, that's pretty racist, yo? And the reporter was saying, like, how can we believe the WHO and China? Like, this is pretty egregious, all of this stuff that's being said. And Patty Haydu shut him down. And now Justin Trudeau is claiming racism as well when asked about Chinese ties and military access to level 4 Canadian labs in Winnipeg. Right? All of this is blowing up, and Canada is very concerned about racism if ever you talk about China or the WHO. It's interesting. Here's the Patty Haydu clip followed by the House of Commons clip. Here we go.
Sorry, please let her finish. No. Ian?
So I would say that your question is feeding into the conspiracy theories that many people have been perpetuating on the internet. And it's important to remember that there is no way to beat a global pandemic if we're actually not willing to work together as a globe. We will have to come up with a global solution to this virus. No country is an island. And I am so proud of the Canadian researchers that are part of the World Health Organization Solidarity Project that are working on developing vaccines and treatments for this virus that undoubtedly are going to be a big part of the solution about how we all get ourselves out of this situation.
So when asked how can you trust the WHO, and this is way back in April 2nd of 2020 when people were still trying to say there wasn't a huge deal and we've got control of this and blah 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 blah. I guess we were locked down by that point, but we were still believing it was just another couple of weeks. Right? We'll open up soon. That's racist if you ask about anything to do with origins or anything like that. And here Well, here's a similar question about the origins of the military infiltration of Canada's infectious disease lab. Okay, here we go. This is Michael Barrett asking the question.
And Rideau Lakes.
And the Prime Minister told us that they're partnering with universities. These are the same universities that are partnering with Huawei. Huawei that this Prime Minister, unlike all of the other Five Eyes nations, have banned. What is with this Prime Minister's admiration for the Chinese Communist Party, for their basic dictatorship, for their interest in our intellectual property? What is this Prime Minister trying to hide? Is it his connections with the Chinese Communist Party that has him again protecting these individuals?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
We will continue to ensure that our institutions and our networks are kept safe and secure. An examination of 5G technologies and review of security and economic considerations is ongoing. We will carefully weigh these matters with our allies and partners, and we will make the best decisions for Canadians. We will move forward and at the same time stand against anti-Asian racism, stand up for diversity, and stand against intolerance.
So asking about the ties to the communist China and ties to, well, asking anything about anything, right? Access to the level 4 labs. Trudeau claims racism when grilled about Chinese military scientists, right? That's it, obviously, because Canada is racist according to the Liberals. The Liberals who've been in charge of Canada for the last 6 years. They just keep uncovering all this racist stuff. Have they uncovered anything in the military to fix that sexual culture that they've fostered there, right? Like, I don't know, but they're determined to find racism and then exploit it for political gain, right? Like, good job, Liberals. Freeland refuses 6 times to answer how much she has given the Chinese Infrastructure Bank and why she's giving it $49 million more, excuse me, $49 million more. That's a lot of millions of dollars. That's half what Ontario spent on Teslas last year, right? So taxpayer money. $100 million on Teslas? I think it was 100 million. Maybe it was 100,000. Ooh, that's an order of magnitude difference. I just reported on it yesterday. Was it 100 million? I can't remember. I'll have to look. I got to find out. Hold on. 100 million sounded like too much, but yeah, it's 100 million, says CP24. $100 million subsidizing purchase of Tesla Model 3, right? And $50 million on $50 million on the Chinese Infrastructure Bank. Which one do you think got us more? What exactly are we getting for this? Some Tesla ownership? Sadly, too many Canadians are being priced out of their own country. Soaring house prices stoke fears of Canada's cost of living crisis. Yeah, when the cost of food continues to increase, the cost of the inventory of available housing is diminished, and there's not really an end to that happening because the policies they're doubling and tripling down on the policies that are resulting in all of this collateral damage, right? And the demand being increased because of more people, the supply being limited because of the policies at the provincial level, preventing building, et cetera, for various things, from COVID to the green belts to all of that other stuff. And some of them are necessary and some of them aren't. Some of them are just unnecessary red tape that prevents progress and the lowering of our price to get into a house. In the 1980s, my parents bought a house for I think it was $59,000 was the base price of the house, and it was a 3-bedroom, no garage, with a basement and a yard, 1,200 square foot house, $59,000, right? So I only know they had the flyer, and not because they kept it on purpose. They put it in a drawer, and then things got layered on it, and then they moved out and they found it, and they're like, oh, that's cool. Anyway, $59,000, wild, right? So a lot's changed in 40 years. Right? Lots changed in 40 years. Holy smoke. 90%. Okay, they're going for a digital crypto euro, right? 90% of all euro transactions are already digital. 10%, they're trying to migrate, and they're trying to force migrate everybody to the digital euro. The digital euro is important for Europe's sovereignty, says BMF. Finance minister and his French counterpart agree to push forward at full speed. This will strengthen our internal market and our currency. We need to start a pilot phase this year. Digital euro. So just in case you weren't sure, that's definitely where they're going. That's what they want to do. Facebook's announced that it's reversing its policy that banned posts which claim COVID-19 was man-made just months after asserting that the theory had been debunked. I think that this is kind of 2020 in a nutshell. Like that debunked theory that was banned on Facebook, if anybody posted about it, it just got removed. And everybody was okay with that because it was a debunked theory and we have to protect against fake news or something. This is why it's not correct to do that, because if there's and man, you can buy the front page of Reddit if you want to, right? Like there was a guy who bought the top spot on like our marshmallows or something stupid, right? And he just got all of these upvotes in such a short time that he got the #1 spot on Reddit. And he's like, hey Reddit, like what's up? And this is probably 2015 or something like that. This is going back a while before Trump happened and Reddit really went bad. So you can purchase anything you want. You want anything you want. You can put up any ad you want with any graphics that you want, right? Like, and you're probably going to not be able to spend enough money to really catch the attention of anybody to stop you from running that ad, unless you're doing something illegal, right? But if you're offering like whatever ad or whatever idea, generally you can run it. But if Facebook takes it down and nobody ever sees it anymore, then it's wrongthink, right? And the Ministry of Truth, the Facebook censors, are operating in overtime, making sure that people's like everyday posts comply with this impossible, like, don't be fake news. And it's impossible because what does it take to make something fake news? Like a couple of experts debunking it, saying, oh, that's not possible. The whole reason that they said the Wuhan lab leak wasn't possible is because a couple experts said, no, that's not possible. Now it's possible. Who knows? I don't know, right? But I think that the idea that Facebook has a credible source saying, yep, it's debunked. And now across Facebook, like even just across Canada, if it's just Canada that Facebook does these words that are debunked and therefore will be removed from the platform, that doesn't make us better or stronger. It doesn't make us more able to discern truth from fiction or fact from somebody's flight of fancy, right? And maybe you should be able to decide for yourself. If somebody's saying like, I hesitate to use flat earth. If somebody's saying something that is plainly false, because I don't want to disparage anybody. Like I don't think that, like I think that the world is a stranger place than we know, right? And it's a very, very strange thing to try and say, crazy people, right? Because we're in a situation where how can you know what's true? We've been locked down for a year because of a virus, because of case numbers told to us on a TV, right? People have bankrupt their businesses because the government told them to for a year. So what's crazy? Like, right? So I hesitate to disparage, but even the craziest of crazy theories should be given just as much chance to be boosted on a platform like Facebook or Twitter, because if it's a crazy theory, then it'll probably burn itself out and people go, oh yeah, that's crazy, right? Like, and just that, no problem, right? And so what's the harm, right? You got to wonder. So the censorship is obviously not to keep us safe from the fake news, because I think that exposing yourself to that is an inoculation. It's not like if you are afraid of heights, like exposure, afraid of elevators. If you're afraid of elevators, you don't just avoid elevators for the rest of your life. You get stronger. Like you expose yourself to elevators, and then you maybe ride in an elevator for 1 floor, and maybe then 3 floors, right? And see how it goes, right? You get in the elevator and then get out of the elevator. You don't like say, oh, there's an elevator. We don't talk about elevators. Like, right? Like it just doesn't. That's not how to live. This is not how this works. Oh man, you said the magic word, the crazy word. So now, we don't talk about that. It's gone. Poof, gone. Right? Like that's the world they're trying to build. The censorship of right-think. And the Ministry of Truth is being, people hang out on Facebook. What happens if Facebook becomes like you have to log in, right? Like sign in on Facebook, scan your face, let it read your temperature with your phone, right? We have to check that you're there, right? I don't know. I think we probably have the technology for that now. So it's scary. I lost what I was talking about. I think that I think that it's folly to silence anyone that says anything against the right thing. But that's where we're going. That's where our society is going. So, a woman. This is an NDA that the Trudeau Foundation filed against, or wanted a woman to sign so she couldn't sue the Trudeau Foundation. A woman has filed a $1.25 million lawsuit against the Trudeau Foundation, alleging that while she was a scholarship student, she was sexually harassed by her mentor, and the foundation then pressured her to sign a non-disclosure agreement to keep it quiet. In meetings, the lawsuit alleges Bruce McNevin, a foundation board member and lawyer, said Peter Salas, a board member, pressured her to sign the NDA. And I'll just read the recount of that. A woman has filed a $1.2 million lawsuit against the Trudeau Foundation, alleging that while she was a scholarship student, she was sexually harassed. Cherry Smiley, 38, is a member of British Columbia First Nation. And I'm sorry, I would just not be able to say the name, so I'm heading off disaster. I'm going to not say it. She received a scholarship to the foundation in 2016 when she was in the second year of her PhD program at Concordia University in Montreal. She alleges she was sexually harassed by her mentor, Stephen Kafui, a former member of the Northern Territories, and the foundation tried to get her to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. They told her that it would be bad for her if it got out, and that Kafui could sue her. Sorry, I got that wrong. I've definitely got it wrong. And the foundation could be accused of racism by Mr. Kafui, the lawsuit says. They attempted to minimize the sexual harassment, telling her that it was a cultural misunderstanding. We've got a member, or a member of the Trudeau family anyway, telling us that sometimes people experience some things differently. He's talking about a different situation, but it applies.
The same interactions could be experienced very differently from one person to the next. And I am not going to speak for the woman in question. I would never presume.
Right? But if you sign this NDA, nobody would speak about anything. So then that would avoid this whole uncomfortable conference, right? Okay, school. If you're in Ontario, the schools have been a yo-yo all year. It's been a nightmare. It has been an absolute, and the parents are stressed for their kids. Kids have lost the ability to open their mouth, to take masks off at their own will. They've lost the ability to assess their own breathing state, because there are people in charge of them whose job it is to make sure that they comply. We set up a Milgram experiment where the teachers are being told you have to comply with continuing to make sure these suffocation devices stay on children, and they are. And so I'm very conflicted about schools, because I don't want kids masked all day. I don't want kids in a situation where it seems like the limitations that are put upon them are worse than prisoners. But at the same time, I want them to have access to their friends. I want them to have access to play dates. I want them to be able to see their friends. I want them to have their lives back, especially for teenagers. Kids who are 12 and up, it must be very difficult, because they're just getting their autonomy. They're trying things out. To have a year stolen from them, a year stolen of that is a big deal. It's a big deal, especially with nothing to show for it but massive amounts of debt, right? I don't know what we've gotten from any of these lockdowns other than misery and destroyed businesses, etc. And that's not healthy. Kids can see that. Kids can feel that. Parents communicate that in ways that are not verbal, right? Being stressed, being short with each other, having outstanding bills, right? Life changing drastically. These are things that impact kids. It's nonverbal. It's not talked about. Everybody's doing their best, and everybody knows it, but it impacts, right? And it's not anybody's fault, but it impacts. So Ryan O'Connor says I'm looking at the path of school closures and the path to school opening. It's very interesting. Ryan O'Connor says of Dr. Fissman, who's been attacking Sick Kids Hospital for their stance on schools reopening. Now we have the most prominent Ontario Science Table member publicly attacking the Hospital for Sick Children, one of the world's most important pediatric hospitals, for its academics and physicians' support of school reopenings and advocacy for children's mental health. And Senior government sources tell me no decision has been made regarding the reopening schools in June. They're still weighing pros and cons. Last week, the science table concluded reopening could lead to 6 to 11% increase in cases, but it could be manageable. An increase in cases, you say? Ryan O'Connor continues, Dr. Davila appears to say she's not in favor of local medical officers of health like herself making the decision as to whether or not to open schools in their regions, said it should be left up to the government. So this is 18 hours ago. This is 680 News reporting that. And Ryan O'Connor responds. He says, Toronto Medical Officer of Health, Dr. Davila, on April 6th, 2021, quote, I'm unilaterally closing schools by public health order. Also, Dr. Davila, May 26, 2021, quote, I'm not in favor of having the power to decide whether to open or close schools. Huh. Isn't that strange? It's not up to me. It's up to them, right? It's up to you guys. Got to ask the government. I don't make the laws. I just tell the government what to do, right? For the first time during the pandemic, Toronto's top doc, EP Davila, and I agree on something, that the province must curtail her power and those of her fellow local medical officers of health. And this is him responding to the same tweet. Davila, Brian Lilly says, asked 4 times whether it's safe to reopen schools. Toronto Medical Officer Davila didn't offer her expert opinion. Instead, she danced around the issue and spoke of how to keep the transmissions rates low. Right? We don't answer questions we don't like, actually, and we're just going to keep doing this. And yeah. And it's very interesting. Very interesting. Mayor pleading with the province to allow schools to reopen in Ottawa. So people are asking for the schools to reopen. Again, with the vaccine policies of children being able to consent to being vaccinated, I'm very skeptical of this. I'm like the push for this to happen now. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Wise words from wise doctors. The BC reopening plan reflects this. Ontario, however, doesn't. Children should return to schools. Should return to their normal lives this summer and in the upcoming school year in BC without masks, regardless of their vaccination status. And this is Washington. This is a Washington Times post. So that's Washington schools. BC's got a plan for not mandating masks after September, so that would fall in line. Very, very. I didn't think that the masks would be repealed. I really didn't. I thought that it would be something that they would just never talk about again, right? I really thought, and seeing it in BC's plan is encouraging. I hope that we see that in Ontario's plan sooner than later. We'll talk about reopening later on in the show, but I think that during the reopening plans as they roll out, like Alberta's is faster than Ontario's, and so it's interesting to see the earlier reopening plans making Ontario's potentially opening sooner. Anyway, a new report comparing data from Florida, New York, and Massachusetts finds no correlation with mask mandates in schools and the transmission of COVID. So DeSantis continues to set an example on getting kids back in school for a normal school year. I don't think it's healthy to have kids in an environment where they're being taught fear. I think it's not healthy. I think it's really, really doing a disservice to their mental health, right? Like whatever they're learning is impacted by this kind of embedded fear. And I don't think that's right. I think that like the educators and there are a lot of educators who have insulated their classroom, their kids, especially the younger ones, right? But there have been other educators who are getting right in on this, right? Like just doing as much as they can to drive the narrative, and they're being reinforced for that. And it's not nice. It's not good. It's not helpful. They use nudges. They use nudges to get what they want. And this is an example of that. The officer said, honestly, we do this just to discourage travel, quarantine hotels for the fully vaccinated. This is released on May 25th. The National Telegraph. This is a person who was returning. On May 24th, an Ontario frontline worker arrived at Pearson International Airport in Toronto after a weekend trip to the Northeast United States, a trip that was part work, part escape from provincial lockdown. When talking to the Canadian Customs official upon the return, the frontline worker familiar with current health provisions presented the following documentation: proof that both vaccines were received, the second in early April 2020, a negative COVID test prior to leaving Canada, a second negative test result in 24 hours prior to leaving the United States, a receipt for $200 for the COVID test in the United States, proof of work showing employment as a frontline worker, a copy copy of the restrictions and why exemptions would apply. The frontline worker was asked to remain anonymous due to nurses, doctors, and other healthcare workers being fired or having their jobs threatened for criticizing any federal or provincial public health measure, no matter how counterproductive. Despite these documents presented, the customs agent referred the individual to a public health official who informed this frontline worker that they were to be taken against their will to a quarantine facility. When the frontline worker refused to go along with the ridiculousness of having to isolate in a quarantine prison at their own expense while they cannot contract nor transmit the virus, they were still threatened with a $3,000 fine despite trying to explain the situation to the public health workers. Even after telling the public health officials, "I don't care, give me the fine, I'm leaving," the officials continued to insist this frontline worker would be held in a quarantine facility. The frontline worker told the National Telegraph that during the hour-long, highly stressful confrontation, the healthcare officials seemed to only be able to regurgitate public health measures as justification for their actions, ignoring that the frontline worker is well aware of the provisions and restrictions, which is why so sufficient documentation and repeated test results were presented. Eventually, the frontline worker in this case was given an exemption due to other health concerns, which they were forced to disclose. It was humiliating. I had to disclose my personal and private medical health issues to avoid being put in a COVID prison for 3 days. These are my private health records, not the business of some bureaucrat at the airport, the frontline worker told the National Telegraph. So I just wanted to show you what's happening. Like, this is done to, and then she asks them, "Why are you doing this?" The frontline worker told TNT the most striking statement was made by the Canadian health official during the long exchange at the airport. When the frontline worker asked, "Why are you doing this?" "I have all the provisions, multiple tests. I've been fully vaccinated for almost 2 months. Why are you doing this?" The official responded, "Honestly, we do this just to discourage travel." This shocking statement ran a chill down the back of a person being subjected to this authoritarian process. And it's an authoritarian process. So now, like, do you want to go through that with your kids, right? Do you want to go through that returning home? It's a chilling effect. It stops people from doing things that they've deemed not good for whatever reason, right? And so it's a nudge because it's not a law, right? And it's not. It may be an emergency edict, but it's not a valid law because it violates the basic laws of the land, right? Like, all laws come from the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and if it doesn't comply with that, it has to pass specific tests. If it doesn't pass those specific tests, then it's a nullified law. It's a null and void law. It's disgusting to see Saskatoon police asking the public for help in identifying peaceful protesters against unjustified and disastrous lockdowns as if they were dangerous criminals. The police's job is to protect citizens, not persecute them. So they've apparently have 35 of 41 people identified from the Freedom Rally. So, man, who knew? Who knew, right? It's very interesting that people are that willing to turn people in, right? Like, "Oh yeah, I know that guy. It's Dave. Get him. How dare he want freedom?" It's a freedom rally. Goodness me. So that was Maxime Bernier weighing in on that. I think it's scary what's happening. Scary, scary, scary what's happening in our country. Commons Committee orders disclosure of censored emails on sole source contract to Prime Minister's brother, Kyle Kemper, an Ottawa Bitcoin developer. So apparently there was a sole source contract. There's all sorts of sole source contracts, right? It's all who you know for the very padded government contract, right? Who knows? Who knows? Around early July, okay, let's talk about reopening. Around early July, Alberta will lift all restrictions, Jason Kenney announces. Oh, okay. What's Jason Kenney's game? Sometimes it seems like he's on Albertans' side, and other times it seems like he's not. Why July? Why early July? Will there be any provisions to never let this happen again? I think that would be my absolute first priority if I was in Jason Kenney's position, to make sure that nobody could ever lock down the province ever again. Like, never again, ever for this. Never, ever, ever. Like, I think that's the number one priority and should be across the entire country, right? I don't think this was a good measured response. I don't think it was successful. I don't think rushing to market a vaccine is the only savior of the country. We'll wait for that ivermectin part in the redacted part of the show. And yeah, man, it seems like every single thing we've done has been a misstep and poorly executed. So, and I have absolutely if it opens in July with no restrictions in Alberta, not that I'll be shocked, but I might be shocked. right? I feel like the goalposts have been moved so many times that to July, like, did they just buy themselves a month and a half, right? Like, is that a reasonable thing? Like, is that reasonable to conclude here? Alberta's UCP hopes early COVID opening will reboot government popularity. Yeah, well, when you sell out your entire base and then you tell them that they're white supremacists, maybe they're not interested in listening to what you have to say, right? Like, and maybe not directly tell them that they're white supremacists, but imply that anybody who disagrees is maybe alt-right and maybe fighting for, those people who we don't agree with and who are abhorrent and blah, 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 while ignoring the year of hell that the leadership just put everyone through, right? Yeah, I don't know. In Toronto, hair salons have been ordered closed since 23rd November 2020. Under the reopening plan, they won't be able to open until July at the earliest. Underground haircuts continue by people who are fed up. Yeah, there's that July date again. Did they just buy themselves another month? Oh, we can't open by the 15th. But see, I've been seeing all morning things talking about how they want to reopen earlier, faster, right? Several provinces have released COVID-19 reopening plans, but Ontario's timeline appears to lag noticeably behind others, even though certain provinces had higher cases per capita during the third wave. Yeah. It's interesting. I hope we open faster. I hope I'm wrong. But every other time they've moved the goalposts, so I'm cautious. Right? You get me once, shame on you. Get me twice, shame on me, right? So I'm cautious. Will people be able to walk into restaurants unmasked with a family of 11 and say, we'd like a table, please. Where's the buffet, right? Like, can you do that? No? If you can't do that, then we might not be free, right? Like, if that gives you anxiety, stop watching the news, right? Like, really? Mandarin, right? Mandarin. Okay, moving forward. Brian Pallister announces the increase in tickets issued last week displays the urgent need of combined effort from Manitobans as we combat COVID-19. We are pleading, please be part of the solution and help protect Manitoba, follow public health orders, and stay home if you're sick. Well, people stay home when they're sick. Sure, they'll stay home when they're sick, but people aren't willing to comply with unbelievably ridiculous health orders that don't really make any kind of sense. Okay, ivermectin. We'll go over to the Redacted show now. I'll tell you about ivermectin and Brian Pallister being. Maybe we'll end with this and then we'll go over to Redacted. This is ridiculous. Okay, here's Brian Pallister, and this is a question about ivermectin. It's 2 minutes long. The question is basically, okay, I'm going to cue it up better just to make it more poignant. Hold on. Okay, I want you to pay attention to his response. She's spent 47 seconds talking about how are we gonna, like, we're fighting this COVID pandemic with everything we've got, all hands on deck, do everything we possibly can, including locking down the healthy population to save blah, 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 blah. But we don't seem to be using this therapy that seems to be working in lots of places like India, blah, blah, blah. I don't think she mentions India, actually, but she says Yale University, and she cites a whole bunch of stuff. Here's the response. The fact that he gets to rain, that he's like, man, I'm going to show you all of his response, I think, because it's so crazy. But he doesn't address the issue, and he waltzes away from it as quickly as possible. Okay, here we go.
Of course, he's not the only one. It's apparently a drug that does no harm. In particular, it's not got a big risk to try it, but it has helped many, many people. Are we doing anything with that? And if not, why not?
We're pursuing domestic research that we hope can lead to better vaccine availability in the future, perhaps not during this wave, but when we need boosters in coming years, or if there's another pandemic, to have Canadian research available. And we have production, of course, in Manitoba. It's our leading industry is drug manufacturing. I just want to say thanks to all concerned for the rain. Our fire situation, though not fully addressed, is been significantly reduced in terms of its danger as a consequence of this rain. And of course, when farmers make money, we're all better off. And this is $1 billion rain for our ag community. So I want to thank the people in charge for making that rain available. Keep up the great work. Thanks, everybody. Have a safe, long weekend.
So can we use ivermectin? Well, the rain is great, and have a good long weekend. And the vaccine procurement going swell. Thanks for the question. What? So that's interesting. That's notable, right? That's something to pay attention to. Why is that's like when I can't remember exactly who it was, asked the WHO official about Taiwan, and he was like, what? And then he ended the call. Similar. Okay, same kind of thing, same kind of response, right? Okay, heading over to the redacted part of the show. So if you're not going to follow, that's fine. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. Sorry about the Jagmeet Singh thing. That rhymes. Oh, wonderful day. Welcome back, everybody. Okay, vaccination. It's really not too spicy today. I was gonna just all leave it together, but I thought, I've got maybe something that'll tick them off. Doesn't matter. Ontario waited too long to release the AstraZeneca for the second dose. Thousands may expire, supply chain in chaos, and many people can't book their second dose because pharmacies, which gave them the first dose, haven't been allotted any. Well done, everyone. So it's an absolute unmitigated disaster, which isn't surprising to anybody at all. Really, I mean, like, if you've been paying attention, every single thing we've done has been a misstep. Every single thing we've done has led to longer than expected everything, right? 2 weeks to flatten the curve, and we're almost 15, 16 months later now. And at this point, if they got something right, it would be shocking, right? If we land that moon rover in 5 years, I'm going to be shocked. I'm going to be like, wow. I would love to see the pictures from it. Send me the pictures back. Just mount a cell phone on that thing. Send the pictures back in real time, ASAP, fast as possible. Bounce it off whatever satellite you got to bounce it off. I've seen Apollo 13. They had real-time conversations with people on the moon, right? In the 60s. We've got way better communication satellites now, right? Lobbyists, okay, Canuck Law goes through this. Lobbyists for GlaxoSmithKline and AstraZeneca makers sit on Conservative Party National Council. I can't say I'm surprised by this. I could probably go through and do an entire half-hour video just on this, just on this whole connections in this article. He talks about Brian Pallister. Brian Pallister has been lobbied on behalf of the Emergency Bioscience by Tina Beaudry-Miller, another member of CPA, Council of Public Affairs. But what makes her case interesting is that she worked with Scott Moe's government in Saskatchewan until September 2020. After she was voted out, she began lobbying. Interesting way to avoid the rules, just hop provinces, and then you're good to go. So does that maybe explain Mr. Pallister's response a little bit better on the ivermectin just then? But the whole thing is interesting. He's got all the connections drawn out. Super well done work, in my opinion, and like well sourced. So have a read through. It's very interesting. What's going on? The passports, the vaccine passports that we've been hearing so much about. BC's ombudsman Jade Chalk says vaccine passports raise concerns about provincial or local public services being limited based on vaccination status. I think that any thinking person knew that, right? I'm glad the ombudsman said so, but I think any thinking person could see what was going on with these vaccine passports, and that it's not like a cheat code to equity. Like it's certainly not. If you were to ask, Angus Reid asked, if you were to ask the Canadian public though, vaccine passports, Canadians show strong support for use in international travel. Few are willing to comply at home. And so they've got 2 likes and 57 replies, and all of the replies are no, we don't. No, we don't. We don't comply. We don't want to do this. No, we don't. You boys need to move down here. So like there's all sorts of people saying no, and it gives you kind of a bellwether of what people are thinking about, right? Here's a bill from Alabama banning COVID-19 passports. So all across the states are banning COVID-19 passports. Ombudsmen are saying not a good idea, and political types and some media are saying, oh yeah, Canadians would love to have this. They would love to have it. Maybe I'll just keep this whole show as one today. I don't think it was as spicy as I thought it was. Probably the most spicy thing is the ivermectin question and non-answer. So yeah, I think I'll just leave it all together. So we'll keep it all together today. I think fundamentally, we might be seeing a turn. But we're going to go through this again in September if we don't fix the problems quickly and decisively. And I don't know if there's even public will to do that. If we get our freedom back in the summer, if we get the ability to walk into a Mandarin or other buffet place and with 11 of our closest family members and have a buffet and make merry and all that stuff, the public, we suffer from amnesia, constant amnesia, and they will forget. And in that situation, it won't matter that Doug Ford doesn't have real opposition anywhere, right? He'll, not that he'll get reelected easily, but who else? Andrea Horwath? Really? Do you think so? Like, I don't think so. I don't see it. Similar to the federal position, O'Toole is not winning any hearts and minds. If people are free, status quo. If people are free, if people perceive that their access to recreation is acceptable, and thereby free enough, then the status quo is acceptable, and they won't change because they'll be afraid of being called names. And that's, I wish that wasn't true, right? I really do. I really wish it wasn't true. But if we stay locked down for another 6 to 8 months, and then an election's called, then nobody in office in whichever provincial or federal, whichever place that election's called will stay. I don't think, not in Ontario anyway. But if we're opened up, and probably even opened up as open as we were last year, people will say, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do? We can't fight this. We can't do anything about it." And they will continue to do nothing. And it's like, okay, well, then we're not going to get a different result, right? But if you do something, you're going to get pushback. And I wish that people would understand that having a plan through the pushback is the path, right? I don't know where the planning people are for that. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. That's enough out of me. I'll keep it all together today. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.